Let's get more now on Meta's decision not to renew commercial deals with Australian news media. Karen Percy is the media president of the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, and she joins us now from Melbourne. Karen Percy, welcome. So Meta argues that people don't go to Facebook for news and political content, and it makes up less than 3% of what people around the world see in the Facebook feed. What do you make of those arguments?
Well, I think there's some contrary statistics out there that talk about the fact that 70% of Australians get their news via social media, and Facebook would be the bigger one of those. Now, I think there are lies, damn lies and statistics, but I think the fact that the organisation has put in tens of millions of dollars over the last couple of years proves they know that they've been getting revenue from it. I think one of the really interesting things to remember here, Joe, is that once upon a time, the advertisers that are now on the digital giants were the ones that were essentially funding public interest journalism, ethical public interest journalism. So this is not just about what people are actually watching and people are actually seeing. It's as much about where the revenue used to go, and that used to be for a public service. And now when you look at a lot of what is on Facebook, there's a whole lot of stuff that frankly is of very little utility to a lot of people. Lots of advertisements, lots of promoted material that is of pretty dubious, and lots of pushing of material and other content. So I really think it's quite irresponsible at a time when we've got wars, we've got propaganda machines happening across the board. We've got crucial elections coming in the next year and more, that there's now going to be this kind of vacuum of ethical, public interest, verified journalism from reputable sources. And we already know that the social media platforms have huge issues with misinformation, propaganda and disinformation. So I wish I could say I was shocked, but it's disappointing nonetheless.
And so if this Meta funding stops, what is the potential impact on Australian journalism?
Well, there's no doubt that the editors and journalists over the past couple of years have benefited from it. It's very hard to, in fact, measure the success or otherwise of the money that's come in, basically because we don't know. It's been such an opaque process, and that's one of the criticisms that Mia has had of this process, is that we just don't know. And there's been you haven't had to spend this money on journalism. So, and most of the news organisations have not been transparent about the kind of money that they've been receiving and what they've been using it for. Aside, the ABC and a small number have been, but mostly that's not the case. So it's actually really hard to say what the impact is. We know there are going to be job losses because news organisations so often use these as an excuse anyway. But we also know that the money has been really distorted. It went to the big organisations. It didn't go to a lot of smaller organisations. So the deals that have been done by Facebook and Google are with, haven't gone across the board. Now, we also know that the news, it's very hard to say that, 2 years, 3 years into this deal. Now, remembering they did these deals with media organisations to get around being told they had to do deals under the new mandatory news bargaining code. But it's very hard to argue at the moment when we hear about organisations that are having to cut costs, cut content, cut journalists, having to shrink their output or their masthead numbers, etc., that we've got a sustainable industry here despite all of that money. So we really need the government, Michelle Rowland, the Treasurer, to go in there, go hard and say, okay, we are going to designate you. That's that weird term under the code to say you have to actually negotiate here because you are benefiting from the fact that there's news content on your platforms.
Do you think this is just part of a negotiating strategy ahead of the next round, or is Meta serious about pulling out altogether?
Well, you only have to look at the hardball and the hard line they've been playing in Canada as well. Let's not forget that this is the organisation that in January 2021, when there were all manner of fires and difficult things going on in our country, not just shut down news organisations, but community websites that were providing information about fires and evacuation centres, that were providing a really crucial service to their communities. They had such kind of odd idea of what news was. So, that they play hardball, but we need to play hardball back. And the government needs to understand that we've actually really got to invest in a sustainable media industry. Now, we've got, in recent years, there have been a number of reviews into the media industry in Australia. We need to use the News Media Assistance Program. We need to get that $250 million a year that should go into the media that was identified by the Public Interest News Gathering program. We need a greater diversity of voices. We are one of the most highly concentrated media ownership industries in the world. So we need to be able to have a sustainable media landscape. And at the moment, we don't have it. But if we see this money pulled out altogether, then it's a real problem. So there's no doubt that perhaps the terms need to shift a bit. But Facebook plays hardball, and the government here has to play hardball back.
Okay, Karen Percy from the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.